So now we're just going to take the schematic that we've drawn and turn it into a circuit board. We can either go from the schematic program over at File and say Convert to PCB. It's going to open the PCB software and import the schematic. We could also go and just start a new circuit board in the circuit board side of the program and tie the schematic to it. Either will work. So now I just went and added all my components in. This zoom window up here, this is zoom extents. That one gives you everything that's on your sheet in one screen. So it's an easy way to get everything shown. And it's all laid out according to how it is on the schematic, whether you want it that way or not. Another way you can do is you can go up to placement and say arrange components. And it's just going to put them in a nice little tight bundle. It can make it a little easier to start. For us right now, we're not going to, and in most cases, probably you're not going to start with that because you want to start with the size of the circuit board itself. Now, even if you've done it this way to where you've been in the schematic program and you told it you wanted to create a circuit board, you still have to tell this circuit board program what schematic you're using. So I'm going to go up here to File, Layout Information, and the related schematic, click on these three dots, and then I'm going to go find the schematic I'm using. Which I thought was right there. There it is. And now it's connected. And then when I update the schematic, I can update the schematic and then come here and tell it to update from that related schematic. Once I know it's there, I can renew it, Control Alt U, and that will take any changes in the schematic and move them over here to the circuit board. So right now what's important is that I know the size of the circuit board I want to use. So in this case, this is for a microphone, so the sizing is really critical. I have to make sure it fits inside the microphone. So I'm going to start off with that. This lets me draw the board outline. And what I usually do is just roughly draw it, not really worrying. The last place I click, I don't want to move my mouse again. I click it and then I just hit enter. And then that purple outline is my board. And then I'll go and say board points. And this is where I'll set it for sure, to be real specific. If you want, you could set up here the grid to be a larger value so that you can click around and get exactly what you need. But I know exactly the size I want, so this will work out pretty okay for me. If you're doing this and you decide you want to go from millimeters to something else, there are a couple ways to do it. But in this window, anytime you see millimeters, you can click on that, and I now change it to inches. So I know I want the board to be 1.5 inches wide and 2 inches tall. So I'm going to do that. And we're going to center it still. So 0.75. And notice it highlights which one I'm working on. So then I want to go to the next one. I want to actually go to that one and make that also 0.75. I want each of those to be 1. So I'm centering the whole board. And then the other two, still 0.75, and then -1. Same thing here, -0.75, 1. Oops, I did that wrong. And -1. There we go. And there's my board. And I'll zoom everything, and I'll just pull these over near the board, and then I can zoom in a bit better. So there we go. And that's, you notice there's not a whole lot of room. This is just all just going to fit on here. And we have a couple tricks we can do to make it fit a little bit better. So make sure as you're doing this that you know exactly what you can fit onto your board and where it needs to be. We have a couple of mounting holes that we're going to place here that are really critical. So I'm going to start with those. So up here, this lets us place a mounting hole, this one right here. And I'm just going to put them roughly where I want them. And then I'll tweak them. So that's actually where I want them to be, 675. Get this one the same. And these, just like we did when we were creating the component, we can change the size of that hole. And there's a keep out area, that gray area around it, that just tells us where not to put something else. So if you have any mounting holes, if your circuit board is going to get mounted to the bottom of a case or anywhere, you need to make sure you add those mounting holes pretty early. It might be that you put all the components in and then wherever you can find for the mounting holes will work, but you might need to know exactly where they're going to go, so you should put them in early. So on this, a lot of these components are pretty tall, so we have to think about where they're going to fit inside the microphone case. And the way that typically works is that you have all the components sticking up on one side and then the tube is on the other side. So we're going to do that. We're going to make the tube on the bottom of the circuit board. So right now, everything that's yellow, that's bit of layers. That's our top silk screen, and our bottom silk screen is right. So these are all on the top of the board right now. So I'm going to go to my tube, which is this. And so here are the connections for the tube. It has wires coming out of it. It's a little unusual in that you don't plug it into a socket, you solder it to the board. And then this outline is the size of the actual tube itself, because I know I have to have room for it to sit. I'm going to right click on this and change side. It's going to turn white. Now this is now on the bottom of the board. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it over here, set it in place. I want to have a little bit of room, because the one thing I know I want is I want the capsule to sit pretty far at the top. So I'm going to drag it over, and just like in the schematic program, I can hit the R button to move things around. That's good. And typically, I would usually do 0.1 inches or so to align things. That usually works pretty well. And then occasionally I'll go smaller just as I'm fine tuning. But for the majority of the layout, I'll do that. This silk screen is now off the board, and I probably don't want that. So if I hit F10, oops, if I hit F11, F8, no. Oh, there. It is F10. For some reason, it didn't work the first time. I can move into the mode where I can move all these around. So this is just moving the labels around. F10 again to go back into the regular mode. So now I just start placing things. So here, I know I need the room for the tube on the bottom of the board, but the only thing on the top of the board I have to worry about are these connections. So everything else I can put wherever I want. And then these big caps, I have to think about where they're going to fit. If they're pretty tall, they probably need to be in the very middle of the board, so they have the most room height-wise to stick up. And as I'm moving things around, we'll see these rat lines that connect things. So that tells us where they have to connect to, so that helps me know where I should put it. So I think I can put this over here. I'll put that right there. This output goes to the connector, and then this goes to the transformer. So both these should be at the bottom. So I labeled that U1. I don't really want that U1, so I'm going to go back to the schematic and actually want that to be T1. And it is the CM-2840. And then again here I can go to F10 and I can move that label around. And while I'm moving it, if I hit R, I can spin it around. There we go. And this T1 I probably want back up here. There, that looks good. Then I'm going to save this. Now I go back to my schematic, or excuse me, to my circuit board program, and I go Control-Alt-U, and it updates things, and it changed this to T1 now instead of U1. So again, they all work together pretty well. So now I can start putting my components around. The other thing I want to do is I want to make sure I have a good shielding on this board. So I want to have a layer of ground all the way around. So that I do right here. I'm placing a copper pour. And I'm going to go ahead and make my grid a little smaller. I'm having trouble seeing it on the screen right now. Not sure why. Yeah, it's just not showing up on my screen for whatever reason at the moment. But I can do it with that. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this on. That's weird that I'm not seeing my grid. I wonder if it's not showing. Show grid. Oh, there we go. It was just turned off. So I get really used to having things set the way I want them, and then when they were different, it's weird. So and doing copper pour, I'm just going to drag to the edges of the board. Again, the last one I can just hit enter. Then it gives me a choice of what I want to do. I want to do this diagonal grid. I like that best. And connectivity, I want this to connect to the ground net. And that all looks good. There we go. And I did that on the top layer. All my components are going to sit on the top layer, so that's probably okay. And then my leads will be on the bottom layer. I think that will work well. But I certainly could, if I wanted to, I can just click on it and show properties, and I can move it. Actually, no, I can't do it here, can I? So if I right click on it, select it, right click on it, I can change the layer and put it on the bottom. And I'm set to work on the top layer right now, so I can't click on that, but I can switch that to the bottom layer, and I'm working on the bottom. Click on this. I want to move it back to the top because I think that makes a lot more sense. Now it's kind of blocking everything I need to do on the top layer or on the bottom layer for all of the connections I want to make. So I'm going to hide it for a bit, and then I can pull all my other components in. So these components all connect together, but this one connects right to there. So I'm going to take this, move it down to there because it connects right like that. And then this one also. There is a feature that is supposed to arrange all these components for you. I've never had any luck getting it to work at all, like really no luck whatsoever. But it's something you might try. But again, I have not had any luck whatsoever with it. So, and I'm just putting things next to, close to things that they need to connect to. I want to move, oops. I'm going to move all of those resistors over a little bit. So I'm going to select them, arrow them over a little bit. Then this one goes, this one should sit right here. Now, one thing you might notice is that my component IDs are sort of sitting on top of other resistors. And I definitely don't want that because it'll be hard to know what component is what. So I did F10. And now I can move these again. And notice as I go over the text, it highlights the component that actually belongs to. Now, you can put them inside the resistor, but then once you put the resistor in, you can't see the number anymore. So I don't like doing that, which means there's not quite enough room for all these to be over here and everything to fit right. So I'm going to go out of F10 and sort of arrange these resistors a little bit differently. So those make sense there. That one makes sense there. This one actually could also be, yeah, these all kind of make sense where they are, so I'm just going to spread them out a little bit. The issue here is that, actually I'm just going to pull this capacitor over to this side. I think that'll make more sense. And then I'll move these up. I just want some room between the resistors so I have a place to put the markings, the ID numbers. That should be good. Go back into F10. Actually, go out F10. I want to put this one back. I want them all to sit next to each other the way I want. I like my circuit boards to look a certain way. Okay, so now I can move R5 up. As I have a hold of it, I can use R to spin it around. Put that right there. And I will probably, actually, I'm going to keep them sideways because it works a little bit better. Again, that's for this now, I know. Put that there. And these I can put up here. Now notice, I'll go out of F10. Actually, I'll fix these over here. So C2 doesn't really matter a whole lot as long as it's somewhere where it's not going to be in the way of the other one. So I want to make sure that C2, I know that it's this capacitor, and then I know that C1 is this capacitor over here. So that makes that pretty easy. Then go out of F10 and make sure everything sits the way I want it to. So this mounting hole actually got moved inadvertently. So I want to put that back where I wanted it. So it should be at 0 and 0.675. There we go. If you don't want that to happen, you right click and lock it. And that way it won't get moved around inadvertently. And then you have to unlock it to move it again. But that's not hard to do. And that's really it. Let me just make sure everything looks good. So here I've got this connection going to this side and this connection going to the opposite side. So I want to flip that around. Put it back in the middle where I want it. And then this label got mixed up. There we go. So that looks pretty good. I'm relatively happy with that. Everything's pretty reasonably laid out. Again, I've got my grid for my ground. Now notice I moved some things, so it's not quite right anymore. So I'm going to take that and I want to update it. There we go. That's good. Now I could go in and just start connecting things manually. So if I go up here, that'll let me run a trace. Bring this up. Connect it. And I did that on the top layer, so it was hidden. So undo that. And I want to make sure I'm on the bottom layer because that's where I want these to go. Hide my top layer to get it out of the way. There we go. I'm going to draw that. So I could do these all manually if I wanted to. And this is a pretty simple board, so it would not be that hard to do that. Or I can go up to route and say run auto router. And it's going to make all the connections for me. Now, usually if I do this, I'll go back and I'll check that everything's the way I want it to. I might rerun some things. There are times when, so here, it couldn't make a connection there. And usually I will find that I can make the connection if it couldn't. So I could see what I could do here. So otherwise it looks pretty reasonable to me. You'd want to make sure you watch out for things like if I had AC in this is DC going to the heater, but if I had AC going to the heater, I'd want to make sure those wires were kept really, really far away from all the audio. In this case, it's DC, so it's not a big deal. So I want to be able to run connection between these two. If this could go above here, I could make that work. And I can do that by taking this resistor and moving it over a bit. There's room for that. And then I got to tweak some other things. I got to move this around, move you over a little bit. And sometimes you'll have to redo it a couple times to get it right. So I'm going to make that angle down. Maybe I got to go, no, I don't do that. I'm going to go slightly smaller with this. So I can move this a little bit. And I'm going to have to move this up to get it out of the way. So I'm going to go ahead and undo all that routing. So I'm going to unroute all. And I want to see if I can make this work a little bit better. That's actually, so the top of this R1 is ground. So it can be anywhere. It's not going to matter. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this resistor around. And that'll help some. That might even fix it. Let me try that again and see if that fixed it. Yeah, it looks like that fixed it. Yeah, good. And then notice there are some rat lines showing up, and that means there aren't connections, but that's all stuff that goes to ground. So I actually need to go back to my ground pour here and update it. There we go. And then go ahead and look at the bottom. And I think that looks all good. So this is something it would put in, and I would often change that. You know, it doesn't really matter. Here, I might move some things away a bit. Like, you know, you could do that. I think that might make some sense. There's nothing here that's crucial that I would change, but if you wanted to, you certainly could tweak a little bit of these. Like I might pull this away just because there's no reason to have it that close. But a really complicated board, you're going to spend a lot of time just learning how all this stuff should go and when you should have things close and when you shouldn't have things close. So don't be too worried about that. So at this point, this probably looks okay. I want to make sure everything is connected like it's supposed to be. Like it looks like there might be a rat line down here. Yeah, so this connection hasn't been made. So actually I do have an issue here. So to figure out how to deal with that. There's not a whole lot of room to do much, but I could. Yeah, so there's room to move these up a bit, and then I would be able to do a connection below. So that's what I'm going to do. Just move that one up. That should be enough. Yeah, that'll do it. I could also move this sideways with just any number of things, but that looks good. And then I can draw that connection. Now, if you didn't happen to notice that, that's okay. There's a next step that will tell us that. So I'm going to update this. So I know I can fix that now, but before you think you have finished, go up to verification and check design rules. No errors found. That's good. So if I had something where, so let me go ahead and make something bad. So if I, for instance, did this. So those are two different paths that shouldn't be touching but are now. And this will tell me that. So those two nets are connected and they should not be. And when you do that and you say localize, it'll tell you where that is. And there's that little, it's hard to see. Turn off my light right there. See that little red circle? That tells me where that problem is. So I just need to move this back up to where it was, and then it's fine. If I run the DRC again, it's not going to show any errors. Good. That's what I want. Now, the next part is to do is check net connectivity. So the design rules didn't tell me there's a problem because it was just looking for things that are connected that shouldn't be. The board's too big, things like that. Components are too close together. This one will tell me that everything is connected that should be. And it shows me net 8 is broken in two areas. And so it will tell me what they are. So one area is J out pin 1, the other is T1 or transformer pin 3. And that's this connection. So run that and it'll tell you if you have any errors. So I'm going to run this down. Good. And then I'll do that again. And it should show no errors. Good. So the circuit board is functionally ready now. I would probably go ahead and put something on to identify it. So I can put on some text. LEC tube. And I meant to put that as silkscreen, but it was set to top assembly instead. But that's okay. I'll double click on it. And then, or sorry, don't double click. Once I click on it over here, I can say switch it from top assembly to top silk. And that's probably bigger than I want it to be. So I can go double click on it, show text properties, font settings, and change that to a smaller font. 8's probably good. I can put it in some different font if I want. Also right now it's at the top corner is the center point. I'll probably make it centered on the center. And what I mean by centered is this anchor point is now centered as opposed to being the top corner. And that's often useful. So now I can move that to wherever I want it. That's still a little too big, but maybe I'll rotate it a little bit. Okay, something weird just happened. Okay, let me go back to not sure what happened there. Okay, so I should be able to rotate it. Something is weird in the program right now. So this happens sometimes. There we go, drag that around. I want to rotate it. It's being weird. Okay, well that's fun. So I can drag this around. I can go ahead and rotate it if I want. Put your name on it. You could also put a logo in if you wanted. Drag out the size of the logo you want, and then I can go ahead and do an IU logo. This looks fine. Now we can have an IU logo sitting on it. Probably don't want that, but if you did, you could certainly do such a thing. And then anything else you wanted, like below here, I might put what each of these connections are. So this is yellow, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I put down here a Y so that I know when I'm doing this what color should go there. I'm going to make this smaller. True type fonts definitely work better for this than anything else. I'll make it a little bit smaller. It's not quite small enough still for me. There we go. So that's yellow. I'll copy and paste it so my settings are the same. And this one is orange. Text to make that O. And then copy and paste that again, bring it up here. And usually when I'm placing text like this, I'll go to the smallest grid I can just so I can get this exactly what I want it to be. And then I'll zoom in so I can get it perfect. And this one is red. Make that red. And the last one is black or brown. And that'll just help when you're building. And then for the output connector, you usually put pins, you know, this is pin 1, so you could write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there if you wanted to. You know, whatever, anything you can do to make it less likely that you or whoever is building is going to mess up is always useful, always helpful. And then, so in all my adjusting of things, one of my ID numbers moved. So I'll put that back up here. Oh, because I turned that, yeah, I moved that resistor, remember. So there we go. And then if I want, I can do a 3D render of it. Now, probably most of these components don't have 3D models, but let's see. Yeah, most of them don't. But we can at least see the board. This shows us what the board's going to look like, which is often really useful. If you want to make sure you have the 3D models, back on pattern, so we'll go to, I thought some of those should have had them, but so like we used resistor, some resistor ones. So if you go to the component editor, pick one of them that we used. So I know we used the resistor. We use the nearest one, we use this. And we'll see that its pattern is RESBAE. So I go to pattern editor and find RESBAE. There it is. And look at what its 3D model is. And it doesn't have one. It has, so it's not seeing the one that it thought it should see. I think that's just a change in, when I updated my computer. So let's go to, so we can find this. So it would be here, my 3D models. And then it's just a file named actual resistor. There it is. And there it is. And it's all in place. It's not quite right. Notice the holes aren't quite matching up. So we want it to be a little bit longer. So with the X scale, so right now it's locked. We don't unlock it a little bit. I want the X scale to be a little bit bigger. So let's try 0.2. That's too much. So I'll go to 0.1. There we go. So that looks good. So I'll do that. And then I'll save this. And then this, here it gets a little weird. I have to go back to the component. And I have to choose the pattern again. And then save the component. And that'll be with it now. And then, unfortunately, I have to go then to the schematic program and tell it to update from library. And I want to do all similar name components. So all of these resistor 0.4 narrow sim are all going to update together. Do that. And if you change the component actual symbol, it would change too. So now we should have the resistor on this. I'll go ahead and do some of the other ones as well. So the two new ones we did for capacitors, we'll do those. And this way, next time you go to use this component, it's already set to go. If you don't really care about that, then you could just load the model in the PCB program, but this gives you that added ability to not have to worry about it next time. So, and we don't have a model here, so I can go look at, if I go to all models, it shows all of their models. So if I go cap, I might find something here. So that's not quite the kind of cap I want. And that's one of the hard things is unless you know their program pretty well, it's hard to know exactly what any of these mean. So I'm going to go to one that's should be close. I want a 15 millimeter, I know, so don't have anything that big. That's not right. And so, yeah, so it takes a little while to find what you want. I should go back to what I had before, shouldn't I? Yeah, these are all different. What these are like. Yeah, not that. So that's what I want. That's the style I want. If I can just find the right size of it. That looks pretty good. So it's not the right size, but it's the right basic sort of shape. So now I can make it, again, I can make it longer. You just sort of do it until it works. Almost, maybe 7. That's good. That seems to line up okay. I think it should be a little thicker. And this is all just to make that 3D model look a little nicer. Now the edges stick out farther than this really should, so this isn't quite the right model. So again, I could go looking for a better model. And I might have one in my model, so let me see what I've got here. If I have any WEMA capacitors, that would probably be close to what I want. Here we go. Let's try this one. So that looks pretty close to what I want. It's the wrong, I need to rotate it. So I'm going to rotate it on the x-axis, I believe 90 degrees. Nope, that's wrong. So the y-axis. Nope. I usually have to try this a couple times. Okay, there we go. So, oops, that's still not. Oh, this is a weird one. Okay, so I do want to do the y. No, okay, I know. I just want to do z more. No, I just want to do it 180. There we go. That's what I want. I just need to spend more time on it. So now I want to make it wider by a lot. There we go. That lined it up pretty well. And then I want to unlock those. And I want to move it a bit above the z-axis. Just to help me see it a little bit more. Not working like I wanted to. There we go. That's just, it makes it a little easier to see. And then, so y needs to be like smaller, not quite that small. And that's about right. Certainly not that tall. So I'm not sure this is much better than the other one, but it seems pretty close now. And then so yeah, it's still not perfect, but that gives us a starting point at least. So that's how you would do those 3D models. I hate that that's sticking out on the edges because it's not quite the right model. So I would probably spend some more time looking for one that did exactly what I wanted. And I don't know if I'm going to find anything like that. Ooh, that one might be good. So I'll keep trying a little bit. So trial and error, right? That's a little bit too far, but I think this is going to work almost. Not pretty close. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but I like it to be pretty close. And it wasn't before. So now I'm going to make my Y a little bit bigger. Yeah, that works. And so the Z is too high right now. So I'm going to do a minus. One. Yeah, that's better. I don't mind a little bit of leads showing up, but that's good. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Again, I want to save it and then go to the component. And that was this one. Update the pattern. Save that. And then I'll go ahead and just so we can get them all, I'm going to go ahead and do the other one. This 27.51. And I want to use the same model. I think that works well. So I want to make sure which one I used. So I can copy that here. Just copy that name to put in the other one. Here we go. I'm going to load that model. There we go. And it's, not right. We know it wasn't going to be. And I think I did 3. So I'm going to have to do 4 probably. That's too much. And that looks pretty good. That actually looks quite close. Again, I want to do a 1.5. More than that. There we go. That looks pretty good. I'm going to leave that. Again, go back to my component and update it there. Yeah, it's kind of, some of this stuff doesn't update quite as easily as I would like it to, but overall it works pretty well. So now I'll go and I'll update these. And then I should have most of this now. I don't have everything 3D modeled, but most of it. So now I go back to my PCB and I'm going to update. So renew layout, Control-Alt-U. Not all the shortcuts work quite well if you're using this on a Mac, so you might have to go to the menus for some of it. So I do want to update the only thing that's locked right now are the 2 mounting holes, so I don't care too much about those. So that's good. And the only thing I updated was 3D models, so I shouldn't see any difference here. Don't know why that did not work. Oh, I did not save my schematic. That is why. I had to save my schematic. Now I'll take this again. Okay, now I have it shows me that I have these new patterns. And there are 2 different models. So I'm going to go ahead and use the schematic models. The PCB models should be there, but they're just not finding it in the right place. So I'm going to use my schematic models. Now I should have, yeah, so now it shows all the models that it's actually going to use. And there we go. And this is just nice to see how everything's going to fit together. And if you get the exact sizing right on your 3D models, this is a really useful step because you don't have to then go back and put your components on and realize you're not right. So I definitely ideally like to have the tube here because that would be really, really helpful. And there are 3D modeling programs that you can use that are pretty simple to build in that I could do one of the tubes and just make sure it's all going to fit together. So any questions about this, let me know. So that's the basic design process. And then when if you're then going to order this, you go over to File, Export Gerber. And then if you do Export All and Zip Gerber, Zip Archive Gerber plus NC Drill. So there are 2 sets of files it needs, a Gerber set of files. And that's a file for a bunch of different files that are merged together. One for each layer, and one for the outlines and all sorts of different stuff. And then the NC drill is the file that tells it all these holes it has to drill through the board. You export that zip file, and then that's what you would send to the manufacturing company. Let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully this is helpful. See you later.